Ponder carefully maneuvered the little ship around to the sunward face of the stranger. It was still really dodgy on the controls, and would go wild if they tried to pivot right or left. With an awful lot of rotating, they were able to find their way through the shadow. Pale green light spilled out from an opening in the hull. This time, they reached the light safely and entered a huge hangar. Ponder was faced with another unexpected problem. Despite its size, the hangar was crowded. Round, saucer-like craft were parked on the deck, or latched to the ceiling with metal claws. Everything was made from the same metal, like dull bronze. 2 other Hearthian craft were there as well. The bright colors and the odd mismatch of aluminum and wooden planks made the Outer Wilds venture ships look out of place, like toys in an adult's workshop. In a moment, Ponder was putting their boots down on board the alien ship. They kept their suit on just in case. Good thing, too. There was no air in the hangar. They weren't alone. One of the alien saucers was open on the bottom, with an incandescent work lamp dangling from the hatch. Parts were strewn under it, disassembled by curious Hearthians. An unfamiliar astronaut stopped their work to come and greet them. They were holding a bronze techno-doodad with glowing green ends. Thanks to the new helmets, Outer Wilds astronauts could talk to each other when they were nearby. "Oh, I thought Slate was coming back. Who are you?" "I'm Ponder, Feldspar student." Ponder extended their hand. The other astronaut went for a fist bump instead, still gripping that alien component. "Tefra, I'm the new engineer, but not as new as you." Chuck dropped down and stood next to Ponder. She gave Tefra a wave. "Your name is Chuck, right? Wow, your teeth are big." Her smile turned to annoyance, but she couldn't reply without air. They couldn't see Tefra's face past their visor, but they could tell the engineer was looking up at the damage from the collision. "Slate says our pilots crashed less when Gosson was flight coach." Ponder turned around and joined them in looking at the crushed thruster array. "How bad is it?" "That's a lot of bent metal. The exhaust cones are all smushed in. That's going to send you going crazy if you fire them off." "Sure did. How do we fix it?" Ponder asked, thinking they may have to stay and help while Chuck went on ahead. No, I'll fix it," Tefra insisted. "Slate says pilots never fix anything right." "Oh." Ponder wasn't flattered to be considered useless for repairs, but it was mighty generous of Tefra to fix it on their own. "Thanks." Ponder was drawn to the double doorway at the top of the center stairs, but Tefra stopped him. "That won't open. Flooded." They followed the engineer around a passage tucked into a dark corner. Tefra had the other 2 step into an elevator that looked like a big bird cage on a chain. Ponder watched the control spin and spin, and wondered if it was working right. "Turn off your flashlight," Tefra ordered. "Huh?" Ponder clicked off their light, and they were pulled up quickly before they could figure out what had happened. The elevator passed through an airlock and into a dimly lit complex of claustrophobic rooms and halls. It was much more homely than Ponder expected. The dark stained wood reminded Ponder of a lodge in the mountains. The halls were narrow, but very tall. "We could get lost in here." Click, clank. The elevator dropped away behind him. Chains rattled down and back up. Tefra had joined them, but opted to keep their personal space in the cage ride. They led the way past control rooms with screens and lights, and through several unlit rooms. The purpose of the space was unclear, but it was surprisingly rustic. In most rooms of the lodge, there was no visible technology. Tables and chairs, desks, storage for strange objects. The tabletops were almost as high as Ponder's shoulders. These strangers were mighty tall. Their flashlight passed over a portrait. The being was green-skinned, with only 2 glowing eyes and a rounded face crowned with spiky antlers. It must have been an ordinary portrait to the people who lived here, but it had a sinister energy. Ponder didn't know much about this species, only that they snuck in from another star system and sabotaged the Nomai somehow. Not everyone is as nice as us in the Nomai. Don't worry about the giant lizard people, Tephra said. They're mostly dead. Mostly? Ponder asked. Are some of them still wandering around in here? No, they're all mostly dead, Tephra answered with no concern. They reached a well-lit room with white lamps. The flag of Outer Wilds Ventures was hung across the wall, marking it as a way station for adventurers. Hearthian space equipment was stacked and piled along the walls, including 3 spacesuits. One helmet was covered with funny-shaped antennas. Ponder recognized it from a picture. Gabbro's helmet. An old acquaintance was waiting for them, or at least waiting for Tephra. It was Hal, wearing plain clothes aside from a bandana on their head and a tool belt. Did you find another fuse? Yup, Tephra said, still wearing their suit. Although it seemed to be a valuable piece, they threw the glowing green device across the room. That'll do the trick. Hal caught it, apparently used to the behavior. You coming? Nah. Tephra picked out a couple of tools. Got another new project? They turned and left without further explanation, probably to start on those exhaust cones. Sorry, that's my fault. Hi, Hal, said Chuck. Oh, hi, Charty. They seemed a lot happier than Tephra to see her. Ponder took off their helmet and went to introduce themselves. Do they remember me? Hal spoke up first. Ponder, is it? They said, shaking hands like a normal person. You here to help with Ryback's project? Actually, I was hoping to talk to Gabbro. Are they here? Gabbro's here. They're just waiting on us to finish with this stuff. Hal gestured with the alien fuse. Their campsite's on the way. I'll take you there if you want. I'm pretty good on the river. Ponder didn't know what they meant about a river, but a guide's always good. We'd appreciate it. Should I keep the suit on? Nah, leave it here, Hal said, pointing to the other empty suits. But you should get the rest of your stuff from the ship. If you want to talk to Ryback and Gabbro, you'd better be ready to spend the night. They retrieved overnight supplies from the ship and joined back up with Hal. It felt good to be in regular clothes. Just my hat and my lucky pine seed, ready to get some fresh air on an alien world. Ponder and Chuck each had a bedroll and a backpack of food and other necessities. Ponder also brought their fiddle. You never know. Hal showed the way outside into bright artificial sunlight. They stepped out on top of some sort of bridge or wall and took in their surroundings. Neither of the newcomers were prepared for the sight. Far below, a great river flowed through hills and valleys. Forests grew on top of all the high cliffs, while stilt towns surrounded the water. Ponder's eyes followed the river as it split and rejoined. Instead of disappearing into the horizon, it lifted up and came back the other way far over their heads. Eventually, it came all the way around and flowed back under their feet, forming a continuous loop. It really was a ringworld, and the whole landscape rested on the inside of the ring. Wow, Ponder could only say. It's beautiful, Chuck said. She said the same thing about the gloomy ocean on Giant's Deep, but she's right about this one. I wouldn't mind living here. I thought these folks were all about spooky darkness. They didn't used to be, Hal told him. They loved nature, fishing, art. They came looking for the eye, same as the Nomai. They didn't like what they found and went bad. Kind of sad, really. Now that they were oriented to their surroundings, they could see that many of the structures were broken down to shambles. They were standing on top of a great dam, but the far side was broken down. Hal led them across until the top dropped off. They looked down at the ruined half, where the barrier had cracked and sagged. The other explorers had crudely nailed pieces of rubble in place to serve as ramps and bridges. A rope railing helped them navigate the precarious path to the other side. "I'm surprised this thing hasn't eroded further, if it's been broken like this for thousands of years," Ponder remarked. "Actually, it happened recently, during the incident." Hal thought about it and reminded themselves to start the story from the beginning. "The Stranger's autopilot accelerated too quickly, because it thought there was going to be a supernova. Put stress on the dam, flooded the lowlands. Hatchling expected this whole dam to fall down. It did in their timeline." "Their timeline?" Hal nodded. They could only observe things in a reality where they failed. They told Gabbro the dam burst violently and destroyed half the structures with a tsunami when the reservoir was let loose. They reached the end of the dam and looked back on it from the other angle. Clearly there was no reservoir anymore, and the river had flooded its banks anyways. "So what's different?" Ponder asked. "When the hatchling made the journey to the Eye, the supernova didn't happen. Not yet, anyway," Hal explained. "So the autopilot canceled the emergency maneuver and slowed to a stop again. The change in momentum caused things to break differently in our timeline. It still broke, but there was no tsunami. The water in the reservoir just leaked out through the cracks." The three of them descended some ladders to a trail on top of the cliffs. It was a beautiful forest path, but unfortunately many trees were dead or partially withered. Something about the balance of the ecosystem had gone wrong with no one to maintain it. When they came to the town in the lowlands, they saw it really was a ghost town, for lack of a better term. Many houses and public buildings stood intact, empty and forlorn. Others were partially collapsed or completely submerged. The rooftops of drowned houses jutted up out of the water. A raft was waiting for them at the bank, tied to a tree trunk. Hal untied it and stepped on comfortably. Ponder had to be a little more careful with their balance on the rocking boat, but the waters were calm here. Both Hearthians turned to Chuck. "Careful getting in. Don't tip over." They both knew that her physics were a bit funny. "What do you worry about? It's no problem," she claimed. "I just don't want you to get wet again. And we have all our stuff," Ponder pointed out. Despite sounding confident, she tiptoed aboard very carefully, spreading her hair for balance. Everything was fine, but it sure seemed to take a lot of focus. Their guide pushed off, and they glided along on the river's current. From time to time, Hal used their flashlight to trigger the receptors on the four corners of the raft, steering it away from roofs and treetops. Hal gestured to a structure on the bank as they passed by. It was a rounded meeting hall with a pointed roof. "Those guys didn't make it," they said sadly. "The crypt is under the water line. Nothing we could do for them." "Who?" Ponder asked, bewildered. "The strangers?" Chuck guessed. "Yeah, or they're ghosts anyways," Hal answered. "Hatchling wanted us to help as many as we could. Turns out water is bad for ghosts." "Why did you want to help them?" Chuck asked. "I thought they were bad guys." "Yeah, but that doesn't matter," Hal said. Ponder nodded thoughtfully. After a pleasant journey, they turned out of the main course of the river into a lazy inlet. The bank used to be steep cliffs, but now the water came up near the top in some parts. A small flag on a post marked the expedition campsite. The explorers found it more comfortable to gather around a campfire in the woods, instead of sleeping in a grim, dead people house. The weather was always perfect anyway. It'd be a shame not to enjoy it. A rope hung down from the bank. Hal grabbed it and used it to hold him close to the shore. It was still quite a step up on top of the rocks. Ponder jumped out first, then turned to offer Charty a hand up. She eyed him suspiciously. "What are you doing? Do you think you can pick me up?" "Can I?" Ponder asked cheerfully, as if it would be a privilege. "Not unless I help you," she answered. "Then it should work just fine," they said with a winsome smile. She took their hand, sheepishly this time. She displaced her mask through her tentacles and allowed them to pull her up. Standing face to face at the top, she gave him a flustered smile. "Gotcha. You liked that." "I'll wait here," Hal said, sitting content on the raft. "Just tell Gabbro we're ready for him." A short ways into the trees, they came to a camp in a sheltered spot. There were no tents, just sleeping bags, pots by the fireplace, and a pile of canned food. An older Hearthian was lounging peacefully in a hammock suspended from 2 native trees. Their hands were clasped around a flute, but their eyes were closed, as if they'd dozed off while practicing. The old space explorer had a certain reputation. Some said they were very peaceful because they were so wise. Others said they were just plain lazy. Either way, Ponder knew who it was. "Gabbro? Gabbro!" Gabbro's eyes blinked open. "Oh, hey, you're the new astronaut. Wander, right? You here for the ghost concert?" "What? No, we came to talk to you about a couple things, really." "Ooh," they yawned. "What is it?" "Bad news first. Did you hear about the dark bramble seed on Timber Hearth? It sort of woke up and everybody's afraid it's going to destroy the planet." Gabbro put their hands behind their head, paying attention but clearly not getting worked up. "Yeah, I heard about that. Anything to do with dark bramble is bad news. Oh, hi, Chuck." She waved but frowned and stayed behind Ponder. "Ouch. Yeah, that's the problem." Well, Ponder could let her think how to start that conversation. Being so laid back would be more charming if there wasn't so much at stake. "How do you know about that? And why are you still here? It's an emergency." Gabbro was still unfazed. "One of us pops out for a radio check from time to time. Slate left right away. I think they're working on a solution with Marl's crew." "Don't they need you at the seed? You're a genius, right? The quantum shaman?" "I don't think I can help with that," Gabbro admitted. "It's not really a quantum problem." "But it's in 2 places at once. How can that not be quantum?" Ponder reasoned. Gabbro's flute almost rolled off them onto the ground. They caught it and held it up to look at the reflection. Certainly took good care of their instrument, judging by the polish. They finally put some thoughts together. "Well, it's kind of quantum, but not the way you think. It's not in a true superposition. No one's ever seen a seed disappear. I think they're anchored to the rest of the bramble, so they can't really flip between states." "But you learned so much from the hatchling. Did you ever try to do anything about the seed?" "One time I launched a scout into the seed and looked away, and looked at the images the little scout was sending back. That way the seed was observed in dark bramble, but not on Timber Hearth." They watched Ponder to make sure the newbie was following along. Gabbro finished with a shrug. "Didn't really do anything. Just felt like something the hatchling would do." "So you're just going to stay here?" Ponder still asked. "Yep. Sometimes physics is about the secret laws of the universe, but sometimes it's just about picking up a heavy object and putting it somewhere else. They held up their flute in the air and pushed it sideways with their other hand, made a little psh sound. That's more of a slate problem. I'm dumbfounded, but that makes sense. Slate, after all, designed and built most of their spacecraft. They were the top expert on moving things through space. A bunch of folks on Timber Hearth knew a lot about cranes and pulleys. If something needed moving, they'd figure it out, and they'd have more than enough hands to make it happen. Chuck took a deep breath and came closer. Gabbro? There's something I need to tell you, she began. Gabbro sat up and listened intently. They must have sensed that this was a real heart-to-heart. It was easier to confess all at once. The Bramble seed woke up because of me. I was there and I connected to it somehow. I think I'm just evil because I'm an anglerfish. Whoa, Gabbro said, taking in the severity of the whole thing. Did you mean to do that? No, maybe, I don't know, she fidgeted. It just happened, but I went along with it. Sounds like you didn't choose it on purpose, they said. But it happened, she argued. She feels like we're letting her off too easy. Dark Bramble is pure evil. There's something wrong with me. I must be evil inside too. Gabbro's expression was empathetic, but steady. You're not the only person who feels that way. Really? That was a nice thought, but it made her even more confused. If one other person in the universe has been through something similar, that's news to us. Evil anglerfish, evil lizard people, Gabbro said, weighing them out about the same. They gave her a gentle smile. Was that a twinkle in their eyes? You should come to my ghost concert. I think it'd be good for you.